please remain standing as you're able for the reading of the Holy Gospel. The Gospel lesson this morning comes to us from John chapter 8, verses 2 through 11. Early in the morning, Jesus came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery. And placing her in the midst, they said, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such. What do you say about her?" This they said to test Jesus, that they might have some charges to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. And as they continued to ask Jesus, he stood up and said to them, "Let the one who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her." And at once Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. But when they heard it, they went away, one by one, beginning with the eldest. And Jesus was left alone with the woman standing there before him. Jesus looked up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, Sovereign." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and do not sin again." May God add understanding to the reading of the gospel. Amen. Please be seated. God, I thank you that I feel called once again to be your instrument. I ask that you anoint my heart, anoint my lips. Give me the words that you would have me say this day, and open the ears of those who would hear a message, that it be a message you have for them on their faith journey today. Amen. Freedom from condemnation. Earlier in the week, first, I get in my email once a day a subscription called LGBTQ Nation. And it's a magazine, a publication that has news, highlights, and stories, good and bad, about what's going on in our community. And one of the stories that was reported on Monday, I kept thinking of all week long, and it really seemed to move me. And then yesterday, NBC published it online also. It's a story of a modern day situation, which is so similar to the gospel reading from this morning. Seth Owen isn't your typical teenager. While his story may be all too common, he wouldn't settle for anything less than a happy ending. His ultra-religious parents found out he is gay by snooping in his phone. They exploded, forcing him into harmful ex-gay conversion therapy. Seth explains, "I was writing a paper one night, and my dad decided to check my phone. He was searching for quite a few hours and found a photo that clearly showed I was gay, and questioned me for quite a few hours that night." With his parents in control of his life, Owen went to the counseling sessions and busied himself with school activities to avoid home. I guess you could say it was easier to try to avoid home. I felt like I was doing something good with the struggle instead of doing something damaging, Owen said. But when Owen wasn't cured, his parents did the worst thing they could. They pitched him out of their home and cut off all contact and support. "Either go to church or you can move out," Owen said his parents told him. I called a mentor. I said, I can't do this. I went back and asked, is there any way that we can compromise? And my dad said no. Now homeless, he slept on friends' couches and worked almost full time to support himself. And he continued to give his all to his schooling. And despite the adversity, he graduated as his class's co-valedictorian. While Owen was accepted to Georgetown University, but without his parents' financial support, it seemed likely he would never be able to afford the tuition despite a large scholarship. One of Owen's teachers organized a GoFundMe for him. Seth was admitted to Georgetown University and received a financial aid package based on the premise of parental support. Jane Martin wrote on the fundraising site. Seth appealed this decision with letters from mental health professionals, mentors, and community organizations. But Georgetown University has refused to amend their financial aid package, leaving Seth with $20,000 to cover for his first year. Over 700 people donated to the GoFundMe, raising well above the requested $20,000 that he was lacking. As of press time last Monday, the fundraiser already had $50,000 in it. For me, this sounds so much like the gospel that we read this morning, but in modern day. Just like the scribes and the Pharisees, Seth's parents decided his sin was so great that the church needed to cure him of it, sending him for ex-gay conversion therapy, a modern-day way of being stoned to death, if you ask me. Yet Seth chose not to accept the condemnation of the church, the condemnation of society, or the condemnation of his parents. Seth chose, as the woman in the gospel this morning, to accept the loving and unconditional forgiveness that Jesus had to offer. That is the same decision that we have to face each day of our lives. The sad thing is, it's not always society taking us before the universe for judgment. It's ourselves. We ourselves take us there. It is not others that are our harshest critics or judges. It is ourselves. We need not do that. The forgiveness is already available and has already been extended to us. We also must keep in mind that when we look at others, we must not judge them for where they are in life or what they have done. That judgment is reserved for the Christ, for the Redeemer, for the Holy One. We also must keep in mind that when we have done something wrong or something that separates us from the loving kindness of our Creator, we must take full responsibility for that in order to find the forgiveness that is ours already granted by Christ. It is through the acceptance of our faults and shortcomings or our poor decisions that we are able to forgive ourselves and live in the grace and the light that our Creator has for us. That woman that day before Jesus had a choice to make. She could have fallen on the ground and just said, "Go ahead, stone me to death." There's all sorts of speculation as to what Jesus might have been writing in the sand. Was he writing everybody else's sins down? Perhaps he was writing down their names because he knew they were all sinners. And he started with the eldest, and that's why the eldest ones left first. Perhaps he was just bored with the whole situation. You know, some people just can't grasp that idea. I could see it though. Jesus sitting there trying to teach a whole bunch of people, and somebody walks in and says, But this is a sinner. Oh, for real. Sometimes, he had just wanted to get up and slap him with the Holy Spirit. That woman chose not to lay down and be stoned. Seth, the young man in that story, chose not to become a victim of the condemnation that society and his family had for him. How many of our young people, whether they be LGBTQ or straight or not, how many of our young people look at the condemnation from their families and turn to drugs for a solution? Or turn to sex trafficking themselves for solution? Or just give up? If Dad doesn't care enough for me to even live in our home, why should I care about where I live? The freedom from condemnation has already been given to us, to each and every one of us. We don't have to keep searching for it. There's just one simple little rule that Jesus had. He didn't say to that woman, stop the adultery, or stop your moaning, stop your stealing. He just simply said, go. Sin no more. That was his only caveat for me. And that's the only one we have. To go and sin no more. It means also for us to quit sinning against ourselves. For us to start caring for ourselves. And accept the freedom from condemnation that our society wants to give to all of us. Let us always seek the Seth Owen that is within and around us. We deserve that forgiveness and that grace. Everyone deserves that same forgiveness and that same grace from us also. Go, sin no more. Amen.